Hey, and we're live, unless you're watching this afterwards and then we're not live. But today we are going to be talking about fundraising events. Now, I started my career 30 years ago doing events. And the question is, are fundraising events still alive or are they dead? So I brought in Lisa Gareau, who is with Candy Event Consulting. And she also is a connection coach. She does a lot of stuff. So we're going to introduce her. So let's welcome Lisa.
Hey there. Good morning.
Good morning. Do you want to start by just telling us a little bit about yourself? Because I know that you do a lot of stuff besides just events.
Well, it's all centered around events. I grew up planning events as part of a family that was really connected to the community. And I just grew into what is now called the event industry. And I have just grown to love working with people that are planning and promoting their own events. And so my work is really all centered around supporting those that are within an organization or a group or they've started a business and they're trying to connect well with their customers or their donors or their community members. And really events are such a beautiful way to do that. And I do that through coaching and training and support and resources and all that other good stuff and collaborations like this too.
I had a blast doing that podcast with you yesterday. So thank you for having me that on. And I'm going to list that in. So our primary platform is YouTube. So everything's going to be on YouTube afterwards. And I'm going to include you in the description. But why don't we just jump right in? Because I want to know, are fundraising events dead?
It's such an interesting question that I've actually been hearing from so many people in the fundraising space. And I'm doing an event next May to fundraisers that are looking at, they really almost didn't even want to have a session around events because they're saying events are dead. That like it's so hard and there's so many moving parts and we're trying to get the team together and we're all so busy and it costs so much money. We drain our accounts. And so what I'm hearing is there are a lot of skeptics that events are actually alive and growing. I love events and I believe if done well, they are thriving and growing and changing like anyone, right? If we just stick to what we've always done in the past, we will be stuck and our events may die or it feels like it's just not worth it. But I posted online. So if you're listening live, check out my feed on social media. I wonder if some of you feel like they're dead as a doornail, or maybe your events are growing, and I'd love to hear from you too. But I believe they're alive and growing.
We have a couple of comments, but I have to put on my glasses to see what they are. So when I did events, it was all about the galas and the runs. And so, and I've been out of it for a long time. I have no interest in going back. Sorry, no offense. They were stressful and quite often, very stressful. So how have you seen events change over the last decade or so?
You know what? And that really is why I feel like they're thriving and growing for those that look at events in a broader way. And I have my little like flip chart. So I do a lot of coaching and strat sessions, and this is where I love to count. And so the idea of this evolution of charity events or the evolution of a fundraising event, and way back in the day, and I've been doing this since the 80s, so this has been a very long time. A lot of the focus was on the money. Really, what is that return on investment? We're putting in so much money, we want to get so much money out of it. And I think the evolution went through where we were talking about fundraisers, like having a lot of fun with our donors. And then we were talking about friend-raisers because it became more about the relationships. But I think the challenge a lot of donor development folks get into is that they start to look at either this is a fundraiser or a friend raiser, and they start to divide into a couple of camps. The evolution, I think, now is that we have to start looking at these as all part of the same thing, because we're looking at making friends. And if we were to have a relationship, or if you're trying to talk to somebody and you want them to do something, if we're just talking about that action we want them to take, and we're not actually taking the time to get to know them and have some fun and create that environment where we're actually communicating with them over time, That's the difference now, is that we have to see it all as a really a holistic kind of an event. And that's what's going to get our donors super excited about coming back over and over again, and then just being with us financially and in our mission as well over time.
We talked about that a little bit on your podcast yesterday, that connection that events can bring. And I know I've witnessed some of that change from back in 30 years ago. We were just doing events for the sake of doing events, and we didn't truly understand that connection with the donors, and that this is a chance to do relationship building, and not just with the donors, but even with the volunteers and the vendors. I did an event here. I'll flash this up, or I did a video a while back on fundraising events. And one of the things that I said in it was that, don't be a Karen. I actually said that treat everybody wonderfully and make sure that you build those connections in your events, and that people leave with a really good feeling and a good vibe to the events.
What you said, one of the things, and the podcast is yet to come out, that'll be so fun to release that. But you mentioned something yesterday about the idea of everyone in the event almost should take that collective breath and say, we're doing this for a cause and for a reason. But when we're interacting with people, that's where you see kind of the stressed out, I think you mentioned the stressed out person at the registration table, or you've got volunteers standing around not sure what they're supposed to be doing, or people that are just feeling like they've had an extra long day and they're just not in that mode to connect. And that's the point. I think that if we can take this step back, and I think with fundraising events, sometimes we over program too. And that really puts us in that space where it's a transaction. And that feels icky for anything that we're doing. If all we're showing up as is we're making the ask, or we're even worse, we're kind of veiling the ask. And then we make the big ask, and we wonder why people aren't picking up what we're trying to communicate. It changes everything when we start to include it all. And something I coach often on is we have to be looking at what are the needs right up front. Like, we don't have to sort of make sure everybody feels great and eats great food, and then we just surprise them at the end. It is no surprise that you need support in lots of different ways. So why wouldn't we include that in our communication over time?
Yeah. The over ask. We don't want to over ask at the event.
And integrating it in everything, and that it's just done as open, honest, transparent, truthful way of approaching our communication and our relationships with these donors.
Okay. Well, speaking of integration, what are some of the innovations that you're seeing with events? How are you seeing them changing with technology and all the new digital stuff that's out there?
It's funny, because when I saw you had mentioned that you might ask a question about tech, and I am not a tech person. Although it's a means to an end for me. So I feel like even with talking about AI and ChatGPT, and I've got a workshop coming up about promoting your event, and I've got a gal just out of Toronto that is going to be joining us, and she's got this incredible world that she's just expanded into using AI and ChatGPT to help support the events that she's planning. And it's so interesting to me. I told her I know nothing about it. But I think when we look at innovation, it's important that we don't go chasing after the next best thing, but that we actually take time to understand what are we trying to accomplish. And the means to an end is that if you need to learn a skill or hire a person or understand better where our current tools are at, and if you're trying to get over here where we're reaching either a global audience, or we want people that we want it accessible to anybody, whether that's, I used to be a single mom, I used to be at home in the evenings, and I couldn't go out a lot. So that change is a beautiful change to be able to do something online or a live stream. Some of our teams are all over Canada or all over the world. Where are we trying to get with our connection? And then how do we add the technology that's going to help get us there? And things are moving so fast right now. It's really important that we actually take the time to evaluate our needs first, and then apply the technology to serve us. That doesn't answer all the detailed questions. I do have some sheets on some great links to different technology, and there's Hopin and all sorts of things that you can do, online conferences. Zoom is amazing as far as, you know, flexibility and people knowing how to use it. That's probably the number one thing is adoption of a tool. You don't want to introduce a technology that your donors just are not ready to adopt. And that makes them feel outside of the circle or frustrated, or it really does have to have this very easy integration, or a lot of time, giving them time to learn the technology before you jump in.
Yeah. I know I'm a Google Pay girl. That's how I prefer to donate and support. And it's always frustrating for me when I go to make a donation and I have to jump through all these hoops and fill out all these different forms, and, you know, or if there's an event that I really want to go to and they don't have an online component.
Totally. You know what? And it's so interesting because not everybody is in, and not just introverts, but not everybody is in that mode where they want to join in person at an event. And I remember I was in donor development years and years ago and doing this in events, sort of the combination of planner and donor development in the past. And one of the things that I really was always so frustrating. I remember talking to one of the donors. He was fixing his car in the garage, and I'm talking to him about the upcoming event. And I was saying, please, this would be really amazing to have you and your family there. And he said, can I just give you a check? It's just not in my wheelhouse to attend, but I would love to donate. And if we kind of translate that to our online world, where there's so many tools available to us, where people can show that they care and they can give and they can support your cause and really celebrate that this event is happening for those that want to attend. That's where I call them connection points, but that's one of the connection points I think that we miss, is we try to fit everyone into one kind of a mold, and that we're going to give on this night in this certain way. But I love what you're saying, that it's really about opening that up, broadening that up, making it super easy with a tap or something like that, that people can actually give quickly and usually more if they're going to be giving online.
Well, we have covered, I'm looking at your chart there. We've covered everything, but I want to talk more about connection, because I know that's something that you talk a lot about. So how can we build deeper, more meaningful connections in our events?
The short answer, and I wanted to add that just so I wouldn't forget it down here. I don't know if you can see all of this, but creating connection points over time. And so it's almost like having, I'll just make this a little easier for you to see. It's like having stones over a river, for example, and you're trying to get one from one side to another. And if the other side is that you have enough money for that capital campaign or that project that you've just started, or you're really looking at serving your community in a different way, having different connection points. And this actually means different events over time. And it's almost like the candy cluster on my logo, but it's like, maybe there's a smaller event over here. Maybe there's a meeting over here. Maybe these are in-home meetings with donors, with their friends. And then there's other connection points that really lead up to what this fundraising event could be. And then after that, and this is a really basic communication tool, but leading your communications, your marketing, your all that in-person hellos that you're doing, or those coffees, really consider them opportunities to connect over time. And so the connection points, I talk so much about mastering. I've got something called the Connection Architect, and it's about mastering the 4 levels of event planning and promotion with connections first. Because if we're not talking connections, we're not going to see these connection points over time. And what this does, just quickly, it actually helps the stress and the money and all those things that it takes to put on this one fundraiser. It spreads this out over time, and it helps you communicate to your team, really, what are we trying to accomplish with this big fundraiser? And they start to get that buy-in, and your donors also pay attention, and your partners pay attention to what this is, what you're doing within these connection points. So they start to understand, we're educating, we're giving them opportunities to feed in, and they take ownership on what this fundraiser can be. And that's really how they start growing and thriving, is when everyone is taking ownership, and in a way that feels good and happy and wholesome to them, that we're all leading towards something really great, but there's a plan. over time.
Is awesome. And then I got to show this one. Gordon says that it's events are human touch in a digital age.
So beautiful. I want to actually put that in quotes or on my board.
Yeah,
it is the human touch. Like, don't we miss that, Joanne? You know, like you and I actually have never gone for coffee in person. And I still feel a connection with you. But I think we forget sometimes that we can still have that connection and that warmth. And again, people know that you need money. That's not a secret. And I think it's how we communicate the needs and how we include them. And like I said, kind of give them opportunities to connect over time. That's more important in my books than it is a big flashy, and I hear this all the time, oh, but they're doing this down the road, or this other organization that's like us did this other thing. Could we do something like that? And for me, that's really not the point. The point is, where are your donors at? How do we connect with them? And how do we, exactly like that, get this human touch involved in these connection points over time?
Okay. Any challenges that you're seeing right now with events? I mean, has COVID really?
COVID was rough. You know, I'm just this month in 15 years in this business. And through COVID, it was the first time that I saw not just everything completely, I shouldn't say everything, a lot of things just came to this screeching halt. And I was on a call with a group of fundraisers, it must have been 2020, maybe the early 2021. And a lot of the conversation was about having some kind of a crystal ball. Like they were just waiting. They said, if we just had a crystal ball to know what was happening next. And I was just trying in a way to say, because events are my thing and connection is my thing. And I'm thinking, why wait? Why can't we find ways right now that we can understand, we can listen, we can hear where they're at. And part of the challenge, and honestly, the beauty, is that they felt like a lot of local organizations were having more of an international audience. And they're like, but it's the local people that are going to give. How do we focus on those that are local? But you better believe we're all connected, right? It's amazing how I might be talking to someone in Toronto, but they know somebody here in Alberta, or they know someone that could give to a cause. So it was really a telling time where it became a challenge for us to keep moving, stay in the game. I always used to say when I was in sales, this is years and years ago, but it's like, now is when it matters. Now is when it matters. When it's the tough, really, we're tied up in knots and we're not sure where our team's at, and we can't control anything. Now is when it matters. And so when our donors start to see that we are with them in the middle of that mess, and we still, maybe the event stopped, but the need didn't. And so how do we communicate that with the people that are around us? COVID really brought that to light. And that's why I'm so passionate about talking about connection first events. That's the heart of it all.
Connection with that donor in times like this, you can transition them into a different type of support when you really, really need it. Did you freeze?
My God, I wasn't sure where you were at, but
okay. Well, is there anything that we didn't cover any tips that you have? Oops, you froze again.
Probably the one tip that I might share today is when I was speaking about that feeling like down the street, they're doing a campaign, that event made that much money, or this one was really incredible. The theme was amazing. I think I'm still rolling.
You're still frozen.
So this idea of competition, where do we allow ourselves to be in a space where we can be ourselves, that we can have the event and that we really allow our purpose and what really makes us unique, allow that to shine.
Oh, Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Like I say, I'm gonna include all of your information in the description on YouTube, and we're gonna be talking a lot on social media. But I
Yes.
really appreciate this. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. This has been so much fun. Thanks, Joanne.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, we'll see you again.